Recording.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Chairman Poofall. We are ready to start the meeting.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. The first thing on the agenda is a moment of silence, and I'd like to dedicate this meeting to Joe Rose, our recently departed friend and partner. So we'll have a moment of silence first. All right, next, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll do a roll call.
Laura Negro.
Here.
Matt McKenzie. Matt McKenzie.
Matt McKenzie had called or emailed Lori and said he might be a few minutes late.
Okay, thank you. Philomena Quebec.
I'm here.
William Metzinger. William Metzinger.
Here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Clarence Campbell.
Here.
Joyce Cabasa. Anybody hear from her?
I have not.
Okay. Patrick Kinney.
Here.
Charles Ortman.
Here.
Elizabeth Franick.
Here.
Richard Poofall.
Here.
Ronald Sinsdorf. Mike Berlin.
Here.
Richard Corpola.
Here.
George Mika.
Here.
Martin Vitek.
Here.
Richard Huber.
Here.
Doreen Hannanen.
Here.
John Wiener.
Here.
Kathy Schutte.
Here.
Gary Murdoch.
Here.
18 present, 1 absent, 1 excused.
Next on the agenda is need a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion, we adopt it as presented.
Do we have a second?
Who
Can
seconded
you
that?
please state who makes the motions and seconds?
Kathy Schutte, I make the motion, we accept the agenda as presented.
Supervisor
Thank
Ortman.
you.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to accept the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. This is a public comment period, and we ask that those people that are here to discuss the boat landing lease hold off until we get to number 8 on the agenda, and then you can be able to comment. Well, anything else? Anybody else at home? The public want to comment on anything else at all?
Yes, this is Jan Penn.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Jan Penn from Highbridge, addressing you today on behalf of the League of Women Voters, Ashland and Bayfield counties. Thank you for this opportunity to briefly address the county budget crisis and our upcoming referendum on the question of an increase in our tax levy. While we fully appreciate the board's proposal as stated in the referendum as a means of maintaining services to our citizens, it is clear this is only a short-term mend. Ashland County is among a growing number of rural counties in Wisconsin who are experiencing the end results of failed policies and other barriers that have put rural communities at an economic disadvantage. According to the Wisconsin Annual Fiscal Report from 96 to 2020, the shared revenues have dropped from 12.4% of the general fund to 4.7%. The Blue Ribbon Task Force report on rural prosperity released this past December outlines the reasons for the disparity and, more importantly, strategies to reverse the negative impacts on rural communities. We have obtained copies of this report for each county board, which should be distributed to you today. We have also added a cover letter to the report in which we identify a number of key elements in the biennial budget proposal for the state of Wisconsin, which is directly impacting funding and new programming for rural communities. We ask that each of you as elected officials commit to the development of a long-term plan to build a sustainable, resilient, and prosperous Ashland County. This cannot be accomplished without the voices of our residents. Board and citizens alike are responsible for review and support of the elements of the biennial budget and the strategies within the Rural Prosperity Report to move Ashland forward with the rest of Wisconsin. Finally, we request the board arrange an evening virtual listening session for county residents in which a panel of board members can address questions and comments from voters prior to the April election date. The League of Women Voters, Ashland and Bayfield County will support this meeting to the fullest extent of our capacities. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, everybody. My name is Alan DeYoung. I am actually the Executive Director of the Wisconsin EMS Association, and I appreciate you guys allowing me to be on your meeting here to kind of speak to and address any of the EMS concerns that are happening in Ashland County and some of the towns specifically. I myself am not a resident of Ashland County, but our entire staff was actually up there last Friday to talk with many board chairs, some of the existing EMS and fire services. And I'm kind of here to assist with any type of updates concerning EMS and answer any questions that anybody may have. I do want to point out that EMS in the state of Wisconsin is considered a non-essential service on all levels except for towns. So that means if you dial 911 and there's not an existing 911 service or existing EMS service, that does not guarantee somebody will show up. So I know it's something for the public to consider, that EMS is considered non-essential except for on a town basis. I'm here to talk about how we can potentially help out with a county-wide or district level EMS that will support the entire county and provide services for the all the residents. Thank you, everybody.
Clarence?
I just would like to raise a point of order regarding the public comments section. Now, public comments is usually an opportunity for the public to comment either on an item that's on the agenda or on something else that might come before the board. I don't think that we should postpone the comments on the boat landing to the time when we were debating that issue or when we were considering that issue. That is the time for the supervisors to discuss that issue. And normally when we invite someone from the public or from like a county employee to make input, we have to vote on each individual person, whether they can be allowed to comment or not on that issue. I don't think we can open up the agenda item to public comments, because then that kind of sets a precedent for the future. If we're discussing a controversial issue, do we allow the public to comment during that discussion on that agenda item? So I think that we should listen to the people who want to comment on the boat landing issue now during public comments.
I'm fine with that. If you want to move that direction, that way, I would just encourage if we're going to receive public comments regarding the boat club lease, I would encourage the supervisors not to interact during the public comment period. So I'm fine with that, Chairman Poofall.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you. We have quite a few people here representing the boat club today. If anyone would like to come up and speak into the mic, I think what we're going to try today, any supervisors or any of the public, when you speak into the mic, I think you can drop your mask so there's more clarity so we can understand what you're saying. It's a little bit easier. So anyone from the boat club would like to get up?
Hello, my name's Bill Eater.
You gotta get close.
Hello, my
Yep.
name is Bill Eater. I'm a member of the Ashland Outboard Motor Club. Just here to comment on the lease agreement through our contract. I guess we were kind of surprised. Seems like there was some wording left out of the last contract that we want to try to straighten out. But the reason the lease is set up like it was is because it's a park that we, the boat club owners, take care of for the county. We mow the lawns, pull the deadheads, clean the park, do any work that it takes to keep the public boat landing open, work on the dock, whatever it takes so this park can be used by everybody in the county, the town, anywhere they can come and use the park. It's a small boat landing for small boats, and it's the only free landing in town, not in the county, but in town. And there's artesian wells there. People fill their bottles every day. There's a dock there for fishing. People fish there, swim there, and it's something that's all provided free by the county and maintained by the boat club. And we just like to keep it going that way if we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Any more public comment? Go ahead, Al.
Hi, I'm Al Smiles. I'm a longtime member of the Schwamigan Outboard Boating Club. I think a lot of folks that are just being sort of introduced to what the boat club is all about. We really have a very long history, long before I was alive. The earliest boathouses down there were built in 1937. And after World War II, the vets got together. There were blue-collar guys who worked for the railroad. They were mill workers, tradesmen, and they all had a common interest in Lake Superior and getting on the water with their modest small boats, and they came together to form the club. Today, for all these years, we're still made up of folks that are still in that category. On the bench here, the fellow that just spoke to you is a plumber. I'm a shopkeeper and watchmaker. You go down the line, we've got a carpenter for the Forest Service. We've got mechanics. We've got record drivers. We've got tradesmen that do construction work, insulators. We pretty much are a group that makes our living with our hands. And that's also why it's possible for us to do the work that's required to keep that boat landing alive. We built a dock It was no small task, 12 feet wide, full of rock. Took us about a year or so to build that many years ago, but it stood the test of time against the elements. And the elements are really important in this thing. Without the work that we've done over the years, the shoreline would have been gone. We're very close to flood stage there in these times of high water, and we're really built on a floodplain. And without constant maintenance, there just wouldn't be a public access there. So if you choose to support us, we will continue the long tradition and work to keep this public access open at almost no cost to the county. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Tom Yankee, and I am not associated with the Chequamegon Outboard Boating Club, or am I an owner, or have I ever been an owner of any property down at that facility. But I can tell you this, I've used that facility since about 1962 on a pretty regular basis. And that group of volunteers, I will call them, has been able to maintain that facility at a very small cost to Ashland County for all those years. And I didn't know until this morning that back in the 60s, that property was actually owned by the club itself and then deeded back to the county. Obviously, reasons for that were that the boat club people didn't have the wherewithal to continue the financial problems that might have arisen by ownership of that property. So in this day and age, where volunteerism is slipping away at a rapid pace, that boat club is able to maintain that through the volunteerism of their membership and providing an excellent service to Ashland County. I would certainly appreciate it if you would consider them in the future by helping them maintain that facility. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else for public comment? Do we have anybody on the phone?
Hi, Carla Smith. Hi, my name is Carla Smith. I am a sister of Jennifer Ng and Tony Ng and a friend of Larry and some of the other boathouse owners. And I am also, for better or worse, I'm a corporate lawyer. So I looked at the opinion that Mr. Lindsay wrote. And quite frankly, I am not convinced that you can legally not extend the lease. The reason I'm not convinced of this is that all of these community members and these boat club owners in good faith gave this land to the county under the good faith understanding that this lease would go forever, that it would be a perpetual lease. They would do some work and then the county would help support, but the county cannot just take the land that was their right to have without having some type of due consideration. The fact of the matter is there's a reason that there was an automatic renewal provision in the first contract. Everyone that I have spoken to says that it was the intent of the parties that this goes on perpetually. All of these community members have in good faith kept up their boathouses and thinking the county would also in good faith keep up their end of the bargain. If the county, I read the legal opinion and there's some mention of eviction. If the county is not looking to keep up their end of the bargain, then there really needs to be a discussion of what type of compensation that these people will get for all the work they've done over the years, and also for giving the land to the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Is there anybody on the phone who'd like to comment? Go ahead. I guess we don't have anyone else.
We're still getting feedback from somebody that is on the phone or on the line. So please mute your phone or your computer if you're not talking. Thank you.
All right, with that, there's no more public comments. We'll end the public comment period. First thing on the regular agenda, approval of the January 21st County Board minutes. I have a motion to approve.
Counselor Ortman move, Supervisor Ortman move to approve.
Okay, and we have Bill Metzinger, you want a second? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the county board minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, I'm going to make an appointment for the vacated position, Joe Rosa's seat. And I just have to share this with you. I got a call from Joe from St. Mary's. I don't know exactly when it was. He was in the hospital a couple of different times, but he called me and he wanted me to fill his position with Dylan Jennings, highly respected, highly recommended by everyone that I've talked to. So I don't know if he had a premonition of what was going to happen or what, but to honor Joe's request, I'm going to appoint Dylan Jennings to that seat. And next we'll have the swearing in. Yes.
Was this position posted in the paper, like what our process is?
In discussions with the county board chairperson, we put it on the website, and we put it on the website for 8 days on the front page, advertising for interest in somebody to do this. The procedure just says it should be advertised. It doesn't say, obviously, because there may not be a paper forever in this county, and so they basically didn't choose to say it has to be advertised A, B, or C. So in this case, unless the board wants to change the handbook to specify that it has to go within a newspaper or which newspaper, in my opinion, it was advertised.
Okay, thank you.
This is Supervisor Murdock. Can we put the supervisor's handbook? Okay, the supervisor's handbook's up on the screen. And the question came up in item 15, if this is this page 12, item 15?
Yeah, we're at the right spot right here. The chair shall appoint persons to vacant county board seats subject to confirmation by a majority of those members voting at a county board meeting. The successor shall serve for an unexpired portion of the term which the person is appointed, unless the board orders a special election to fill the vacancy, in which case the person appointed shall serve until their successor is elected and qualified. A person so elected shall serve for a remainder of an unexpired term. Vacancies occur upon the death of the incumbent, written resignation, removal, or ceasing to be a resident of the district for any other reason set forth in state statute. The chairperson shall see that advertising is done for the replacement candidates. If more than one person expresses interest, the executive committee shall conduct interviews and make recommendations to the chairperson. It is expected that positions will be filled by the second county board meeting after a vacancy occurs.
Okay, thank you. The reason I wanted that up there is because there was a question about the procedure, both advertising and the executive committee. And as long as everyone's seen that, reads it, and understands it, I have no problem with what we're doing. But I just wanted to clear the air because somebody had contacted me and asked me about it. And so it's up to the board to decide if we're following the procedure, and I'm content with that. Thank you.
This is Supervisor Ortman. I would like to move that we approve this appointment.
This is Supervisor Negro. I'd like to second that.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve the appointment of Dylan Jennings, District 12. Anyone else have a comment on it before we vote on this?
Bill does.
Bill?
I do not know the young man that they're going to appoint, and I know Joe very well. And I think Joe would have picked someone that would have done a good job in his mind. So I have no problem with the new supervisor. My problem lies with someone deciding what we're going to do and not doing the same thing every time. To me, advertising it on the website was good, but we should have also put it in the paper because a lot of people don't have a computer or use the website. So I think we should have a policy, and I thought that's what our policy was, that we would advertise it in the paper also. So I have no objection to this young man. You know, he definitely could be the best candidate, but I think what we have to do is we have to do the same thing every time. Thank you.
This is Supervisor Ortman. I concur. I concur with Bill. Perhaps just some minor word changes in the supervisor's handbook paragraph that was just listed, stating, you know, the chair still of course appointing, but we advertise in the newspaper as well. So that way the chair has a bigger pool of people to choose from as well. So, but I also agree this will be a good appointment. Thank you.
I wanted to make similar comments. I have nothing against Dylan. I just met him, and I understand from Dick coming over and introducing himself. He's just met Dylan now. I can understand the desire to go along with the wishes of Joe Rose. He was a very respected member of this board. Just a couple of years ago, we had a couple of vacancies, or within the last couple of years, we had a couple of vacancies, and it took us longer than 2 meetings to appoint somebody to replace those people. And this is very quickly after Joe's untimely passing. And I agree with what Bill said and what Charlie said, that posting it on the website, sure, it's advertising it, but a lot of people don't look at the website. And in the past, we've put it in the paper and asked people to apply and explain the reasons why they want to serve on the board. And we don't know if there's anybody else out there that would have been interested in the position. So that doesn't mean I'm going to vote against this, but I just think that we need to kind of follow the same procedure every time.
Kathy Schutte has raised her hand.
I agree with Charlie and all the rest of the people. We should be consistent in the way we elect these new people. I agree that the young man is going to be a great fit, but I would like to see it advertised in the paper, and I want the county board to be consistent. I don't care what paper you put it in, but we have done that in the past, and I'd like to see that continued. Thank you.
I want to ask the administrator a question. Does the county have a paper of record that they're required to advertise in when advertising for gravel bids?
I'm not aware of it. County Clerk's Office, do you have a paper of record that is determined and voted on by the county board every year?
the answer is we should have a paper of record that every year we vote on to advertise. So if we're going to advertise for gravel, buying equipment, et cetera, we need to, I believe by law, advertise in a paper of record. And every year the board needs to approve that paper of record. So anyone interested in bidding on gravel equipment, et cetera, knows where to look to watch those. When I read the handbook, my interpretation of that is when it says advertise, that means the paper of record. You can add it to the website, that's fine, but unless the website is in what the county has approved as either a paper or a medium of record to advertise, the website itself, to me, would not be sufficient. So I think if the county is going to be consistent, not just with filling positions, but if you say advertise, to me, that should mean your paper of record. And anywhere else is fine, you know, if that includes the website. If the county wants to move just to the website, then at the end of the year, when you approve that paper of record, if the state statutes allow it, then you could make it that website. But to me, this means we should have advertised in the paper. I'm familiar with this person here. I haven't met you in person, but I've heard plenty about you, and I'm hoping, you know, that he can is interested in this position, whether we approve it today or delay that. But either way, I'd like to see it advertised properly.
Just like to state that in the past, many appointments were made to fill vacated positions. The only process we used before, to my recollection, was the appointment and then the confirmation by the board. I believe that we should go with that process, and there is an election coming up in a year, so if somebody else would like to run, they can throw their hat in the ring, but for the time being, I'd like to just hold with what we've done. All right, now
Laura has her hand up.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody else said. And for the purpose of clarity to the citizens and our sticking to procedures, which is what makes citizens not trust us really, we need to stick with the process. I am aware of Dylan Jennings. I know what work he's done with Gliffwick and impressed with the quality of candidate we have. But advertise to me means somebody paid out some money to put it someplace. So I'd just like to see the process be consistent, because I was appointed and there was 2 other people that had applied for it when I did. I'm pretty sure when, what was it, Philomena and Mike and somebody else, maybe Pat, came on, that there was still a process with that. And if there was more than one person, there was interviews done with that too. So we have a process and we should stick with that.
So there is no way they can see or hear me here, right?
No, you're just hearing their audio.
Yeah.
Any more comments? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to confirm the appointment of Dylan Jennings to County Board Supervisor District 12. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those in
Are we
favor.
doing roll call?
Yes, Bill. We need a roll call vote on this.
County Clerk's Office, can you do a roll call?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Matt McKenzie? You're still not there? Philomena Quebec?
Unfortunately, no.
William Metzinger?
Yes.
Clarence Campo?
Yes.
Patrick Kinney?
Yes.
Charles Ortman?
Yes.
Elizabeth Franick?
Yes.
Richard Pufall?
Yes.
Ronald Sinsdorf,
Yes.
Michael Berlin,
Yes.
Richard Corpola,
Yes.
George Mika,
Yes.
Martin Vitek,
Yes.
Richard Huber,
Yes.
Doreen Hannanen,
Yes.
Yes.
John Wiener,
Yes.
Kathy Schutte,
Yes.
Gary Murdock,
Yes.
Laura Negro,
No.
Not 15, 16, yeah. 16 yes and 2 no's.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Since this is a immediate appointment, there is a swearing in procedure here so that Dylan can be at a county board member effective immediately. Chairman Paul, would you, I think Dylan, you have to come up to the mic and you have to read the swearing in statement.
Okay, raise your right hand. Okay, I say your name.
I, Dylan Jennings,
Have been appointed to the office of County Board Supervisor, District 12.
have been appointed to the office of County Board Supervisor, District 12.
I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully and partially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you so much. Give our newest member a round of applause.
Welcome, Dylan.
Just to make it official, Dylan, you need to sign there, and then Dick, you need to sign there. So just pick one copy. You should do it in your pen, by the way. I don't have a pen here. Right there.
That's the Republic.
Yeah, or, actually, you're right, sign here. And then just say county board chairperson there, because that's you can be either notary public or an official, in this case, as a chairperson. You're authorized to swear him in.
Aninga kina wia, ninsa bijakin indijina kaz wabasheshi and ode mashkazibing nindunjaba. Miguchwe ananaka gua kinagogino agapi jaigo masanungum. Gaigo apanegona nimikoina mango egu mokan giza sabane juinid. Gaigo and kinendenwe maganagama. Shkeda shingu niwa jaganashi imaginates. Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to say a few words. My name is Bija Keens, Dylan Jennings. I'm a Bad River resident and a tribal member, former tribal council member in our community, and still work for Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission as a director of public information. I realize, given the circumstances, I appreciate the appointment, and I understand 100% the need for transparency, and I'm no stranger to working in government and working in leadership capacity. And so I just want to thank everybody for, tuning in, and everybody that's here, and for all the great discussion we had prior to this. I appreciate that. Those are important things as elected officials to always consider. That old man in our language, his name was Mokan Gizis, or Rising Sun. He was no stranger to thinking forward and progressively about our future generations. And for everyone that knew him, he was a good friend and just a good individual to spend a lot of time with. And it was even about a month ago, or maybe even longer, that he called me up, and he told me, he said, I don't know if I'm gonna make it out of this one, Dylan. He said, I would really like for you to begin considering potentially taking my position on the county board. And, at the time, I think a lot of us were like, it's a difficult thing to encounter that, right? And we all said, don't think about that. You're going to get better. You're going to get stronger. Don't worry about that. And I said, if it came down to it, I can't say no to my elder, to one of my teachers. And so, he eventually passed. And, part of this is me keeping up with that commitment and that promise that I made to him as well. And so I appreciate everybody being lenient in these times. And I also appreciate everybody here. I don't know everyone here, but I look forward to getting to know each and every one of you and to working together. If there's one thing that I know and understand about leadership, is you don't come to these positions without love in your heart. And I know that each and every one of you has love in your hearts, and does this work because you truly love and care about our communities. So just wanted to say that much. Thank you.
Clark, could you this is Sue. Could you let Dylan know to come into the office at some point to pick up paperwork?
I think he heard it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is number 2, vaccine update.
Okay, let me get this working here. Okay, so this is in the packet. There are some links. We are going through vaccinations. We're working with Public Health and MMC to produce vaccine clinics, both at the Public Health Office and, more importantly, at the field house, and that's happening every Wednesday. We're making requests for vaccines from both areas. In addition, Walgreens is vaccinating I think 100 or 200 people a week, and we are up there in the state as far as our vaccinations here on the link on the website. We have 73% of the 65 and older people vaccinated, and we currently are doing this tranche, residents and staff at skilled nursing homes, long care facilities, police, fire, correctional, adults over 65, educators, childcare, individuals enrolled in long-term care, public-facing essential workers, non-frontline essential healthcare personnel, and facility staff and residents in congregate living situations. I do have Liz online from Public Health if there's any questions about our plans or our strategies as we're going through, in addition to what's in the write-up. So with that, staff will take questions if there's any.
This is Supervisor Ortman.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you. Are you seeing any, in the testing, are you seeing any variants at all? I know the answer was no last time.
This is Liz from Public Health. As far as variants, we have had several cases of variants identified in our region. So that would include our HERC region, which extends from Ashland County down to and including Eau Claire counties. We have not had any variants identified locally that I'm aware of as of this point, but there have been several cases in the region.
What variant was it? Do you know the specific?
I believe it was the British variant.
Okay, did that cause the board to, is the reaction still the same? Or do we need to I don't know what we would do different. We're all doing the masking, but were they moved to consider stronger restrictions or anything like that?
As far as for public health, we had no additional changes implemented at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Is any more on the update? Or is that it?
That's it.
I have my hand up.
Go ahead.
Liz, I was just wondering, this morning on the TV, the CDC said that if you've been vaccinated twice, you don't have to wear the mask if you're in a small group of people in your home. Is the county going with that also, or are we there yet for that question?
Before providing that official recommendation, we would wait for DHS to review all of the information from CDC. I did see some headlines and some blurbs from CDC this morning, but I haven't had a chance to review everything in detail. And DHS usually either adopts the recommendations in whole or makes some small revisions to them to suit Wisconsin specific needs and requirements, and usually puts out that information within the next day or so after CDC has put out their recommendations.
So we'll continue to wear the mask until told to.
Yes, please continue masking.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Twiners.
And just to let the board knows, we still have Liz, and we are working with Iron, Bayfield, Ashland County, Emergency Management, Sheriff's Department, public health officials, MMC, Red Cliff and Bad River tribal nations, and we meet once a week to go over our coordination and plans on how we messaging to people. So,
If I'm not mistaken, I think the CDC recommendation is that if everyone in that group has been fully immunized, then you can meet without masks. But if everybody in that group has not been fully immunized, then you have to wear masks.
Clarence? I heard it differently on the TV this morning. It said grandparents could go visit their children at their home, even if they're not vaccinated, as long as they're at a low risk of getting the virus.
I didn't hear that.
I did.
This is Supervisor Franek. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, if people are fully vaccinated, can they still be a carrier of the virus with somebody that is not vaccinated?
Initially, there was some debate regarding that with one vaccine versus the other, as to one is more efficient than the other. With some of the new recommendations coming out, you know, as was just mentioned, where the CDC is saying that it's potentially okay to be unmasked with visiting individuals, I'm leaning towards the information, and the data is showing that you would not be a carrier after you have been fully vaccinated. That an individual would not be a carrier after that point, if the CDC might be leaning towards it's not necessary to mask.
Thank you.
And so we basically are still in the midst of collecting names for both MMC and the county. On our website is the registration form, and people can go there to register for that. We download that information to Excel document. We are looking at rolling into the state registry system maybe next week or the week after that. The state has had some hiccups on the rollout of the statewide system. Liz, do you have any further updates concerning the rollout?
Very big hiccups. We have the hardware. Our tentative go live date for the state registry was actually yesterday. So we have the hardware required for it, but we are having significant issues with the software portion of it. We're not able to download and or update the programs required on the hardware that the state has provided. So we're essentially going with what we've got at this point in time until we're able to try and get the state system up and going. Then we're going to try to integrate the two lists and phase out our existing registration system and start using the state system. In lieu of that, we did update our registration system. We updated the registration on the website yesterday. So it's on the county website. We also have it for anybody that's on social media. We have it pinned to the top of our Facebook website. And then there's still the individuals can still call the main phone number for Health and Human Services, and they can register by leaving a voicemail that way if they do not have internet access. I know the ADRC was also putting together some information, and they were going to be, I believe she has an article that will be going out in some of the local newspapers with additional information for individuals that would not have internet access, explaining the process as far as registering via phone and things like that. So there are additional resources in the works yet at this point in time, but as Clark mentioned, as far as the state system, there have been some significant hiccups encountered.
And then this is the Walgreens registration site also. That's a secondary site that we're finding as we're going through and contacting people to come to our vaccination centers. We see a lot of them drop out because they've already got it at Walgreens. Do we have, we're having a vaccination clinic tomorrow, Liz, is that correct?
Yes, we will be having a clinic. We're planning a clinic for tomorrow with our partners. And just to expand, Clark had mentioned that we have partnered with Memorial Medical Center. We are also partnered and working with Schwamigan Clinic, Essentia Health, Ashland Clinic, and North Lakes Community Clinic. They also help to provide a lot of manpower and staffing, whether it be making phone calls to schedule those appointments or actually staffing and helping to work the clinic. It's been a very, very large cooperative effort between all of our clinical partners to put these vaccination clinics out. I believe we have roughly 250 doses available for the clinic tomorrow. We are primarily focusing on the remainder of our 65 plus weight group for that clinic. And once we're hoping that we might be able to nearly exhaust that wait list tomorrow, and if there are any additional doses left over, we will be providing those to the Ashland School District to try and provide more vaccinations to the teachers and educators throughout the Ashland School District. The Butternut, Mellon, and Our Lady of the Lake school districts, we do have, we began vaccinating, and Ashland School District, we began vaccinating their staff last week, and between last week and this week, for the 3 smaller school districts, we do have all of their staff that are interested at this time have either received their first dose or are scheduled. So optimistically, within this week, potentially next week, we will have all of the school staff and educators will have received at least their first dose of vaccine. We've also been working in some of our daycare providers, you know, between the different daycare centers and also some of the smaller, you know, 1 or 2 person daycares, in-home daycares. We've been working in some of those individuals as well to get our daycare, childcare workers covered as well.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Liz. Thanks for the. Oh, was Bill there first? I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead, Bill.
I just would like to know what's the time frame when people under 65 would be getting their vaccinations, or it would be available to them. Has a time frame been set yet, or is there? So the individuals, and I don't, if you can see the screen that Clark just pulled up,
Any individuals that would fall into any of those criteria, they are eligible for vaccination at this time. Per the direction of DHS, we did prioritize our educators and childcare providers, but once we have that group covered or the large majority of them vaccinated, we will start working from the rest of our 65, or not, the rest of our group that is eligible. Will start working from that wait list, as well as still incorporating individuals from the 65 plus and our medical providers. If there's any stragglers that haven't received their vaccine yet, we'll start working those people in as well. I was actually able to make a couple of phone calls off of that wait list yesterday to start getting some of those individuals scheduled. So hopefully within the next week or so, we will be full force into that list to get more vaccinations into the community.
Philomena, you're next.
Yeah, okay. I was just hi Liz, how are you? Thank you for all the work that you guys are doing. I'm just blown away every time I go to the Bad River Clinic. You know, I know that you guys and all the different clinics in North Lakes are just doing an incredible job at reaching out and getting this vaccination to our communities. I was just wondering if you could talk about any outreach that you've done to maybe people who are harder to reach. I know a lot of people that don't have good phone service a lot of times. You know, there's also people who are unhoused, unstably housed within our community, even people over 65. And then also is when we're talking about people in congregate living situations, are we also talking about people in the jail? So those are my questions.
As far as outreach at this point in time, we've been putting out the different resources, specific to our county, and then also, the resources that the state and CDC have been putting those out. They've essentially been on every, whether it be media source or print or paper. All of that information is pretty much readily available at this point in time. We have had some individuals who, if they're not tech savvy, if they don't have a phone, we have had some individuals that actually come to the office, and we've arranged for a way to contact them to schedule an appointment. We've had quite a few people who, they call up and they say, so-and-so X, Y, and Z. So we add them to the registration list that way. And that's totally fine if you know somebody who, and they're willing to work with you if they're not able to, if they don't have the resources available, and you can schedule for them by all means. So we've had quite a bit of success as far as that way for getting individuals. We also call repeatedly. So if you do not have good cell phone service, we will call you multiple times. Especially for the community clinics, we've been, as I said, with the other clinical partners that have been assisting, a lot of that assistance has been provided in making the phone calls to schedule to get people to come to the clinic. So I know some people, they've been called by essentially every organization. They've been called by us, Schwamigan Clinic, Essentia Health, North Lakes Clinic, sometimes multiple times in a day to try and get them scheduled. So it's been a kind of a group effort for outreach. All of our clinical partners are also putting out that information. They're working specifically with some of their clients to help them register on the various different lists and to do additional outreach as far as that goes. For individuals in congregate living settings, the nursing homes and assisted living facilities did have a federal contract through Walgreens. So all of the nursing homes and I believe all of the assisted living facilities were covered on that contract in Ashland as well. So they have received, I believe they've all actually completed their first and second doses at this point in time. And then additional congregate living settings, anybody would be eligible for vaccination. Specifically to the jail, at this point in time, DHS has not prioritized the inmates necessarily. And for county jails, it gets to be a little bit more of a gray area because we don't have a lot of, I guess, long-term individuals. Some of them obviously are there longer, but not as long-term as what the prison setting would be. But the direction that was provided more so was to provide coverage to the moving parts. So for in a prison or jail setting, the moving parts would actually be the correctional officers or the staff. So the inmates, once they are there, they would essentially go through their quarantine period and their health screening. So they would be healthy when they're there. So their exposure risk would actually be the staff coming in and out of the jail. So then we want to focus our vaccinations on the staff. That would be the moving parts that could potentially carry the illness into the jail. And we have, we've already offered and vaccinated a large number of the individuals working at the Ashland County Jail. I'm not sure of the percentage off the top of my head, but I know a good number of them have received their vaccinations. So the moving parts that could be the vector for the illness have been provided with vaccination to protect the individuals that would otherwise, be at increased risk.
Yes.
John's coming to the phone or the microphone.
I have a question for you. What about all the people that are against the shot? Do you have any good recommendations or requirements or the best that you could do to inform the people that are against this shot to change their minds?
We can provide the best education that we have available regarding the vaccine as we have it available. Essentially the same as we would with any vaccination. There's, various different populations and individuals who are against various different vaccinations for whatever those reasons would be. So we provide the most accurate information that we have available, answer any questions that we would have for them. The vaccination cannot be required at this point in time as it is under an emergency use authorization. So therefore it cannot be mandated or required, but we strongly encourage everyone to receive the vaccine. We can provide any education, answer any questions to the best that we're able to provide them with the most, so they would be able to make the most informed decision that they would be able to.
And Laura had her hand up.
I just wanted to do an FYI because I don't know if it was by email or if it was by a postcard that a few people that were in that over 65 age group, they were confused by the abbreviation for county health that was on there. So if you can type it out or whichever way it was.
Okay, do you know who the postcard was from?
I do not know.
Okay.
I just know there was some confusion with where to go, and I'm like, oh, I know that. I know that abbreviation. I'm on that committee.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I'm not sure who the mailing would have been from. There's probably been several at this point in time, so I'm not sure which one it would have been.
Okay, thank you.
Any more comments? Hearing none, we'll close the vaccine update. We'll go to number 3 on the agenda, listening session on the referendum.
Well, I think we kind of covered that under the public comments. I think the Supervisor Campbell talked about that. So.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
If we've put this on the agenda and people didn't show up until now because that's where it said the discussion was, shouldn't we address that for them then, since it's in there?
Certainly. So Dick, why don't you ask for public comments on listening for the referendum?
Do we have any public comments on the referendum?
This is Jan Penn again from the League of Women Voters, and I believe I spoke to that issue in the public comment section, and we strongly support there being a scheduled evening virtual listening session between now and the time of the referendum, the vote in April. We support action being taken to that effect and consideration of having the listening session, and we're willing to support this meeting to the fullest of our capacity from the league.
Any more public comments? Any more public comments? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment period. You want to go to referendum discussion?
Yeah, so this is a item number 4. There is no motion needed, but this basically goes through your packet. You can see it's 10 pages long. I'm assuming everybody has had the opportunity to read this. And basically it talks about the financial stresses that the county is under, our decrease in unallocated fund balances, and basically the lack of cash, which we have later on in the agenda. And we understand there isn't any good time to raise taxes, but the fundamental elements of what citizens want for services and what the state mandates we provide and the local revenue to pay for them are misaligned. County board members are elected to make hard decisions that will not please everyone. But we have an obligation or duty to oversee the county in such a fashion that it functions as an arm of the state of Wisconsin. I'm sure citizens would prefer not to pay any taxes. That's not an option. Price of living in a free country with a democracy is taxes. Without taxes, our country would cease to exist. Attached, you'll find the mandated services which we have no choice in providing. I've also included the downward trend in fund balances on our investment report. Also included in the packet is a spreadsheet which details departments and their load on the general fund. Towards the top are the non-mandated services and community contributions, which most likely will need to be cut if the referendum does not pass. We don't have a choice regarding fulfilling state mandated services. Everything that is not a state mandate would have to be considered if the referendum does not pass. During this meeting later on, the board will be voting on consulting to bring outside analysis, and I did get update this morning about an hour ago from the Department of Revenue that I'll be going over with agenda number 6. And so that will be an update with that. So one thing I just wanted to highlight is we're continuing to update kind of a high level review for your budget. And when we look at what we don't have to provide, basically all the things that are in here, these are the things we're not mandated by the state to provide. And so if we have to end up balancing the budget, these are the things that would have to be considered with the misalignment that we have. And I just kind of wanted to point that out to the board. And the board can we're not setting the 22 budget at this period. Our next county board meeting will be on April 20th. And so we'll have knowledge of if the referendum passed or not. If it didn't pass, April 20th will be the start of what service, what kind of contributions and services is the county board going to get rid of in order to make the county financially stable again. So there isn't really any vote that you have to take today, but I just bringing this to the attention, and we will be talking to the newspaper over the next couple weeks as the election for the referendum is on April 6th. And we'll be, advocating that this should pass in order to have a financially stable county government.
This is Supervisor Ortman.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you. Why exactly can't we challenge the mandates? I mean, this all went back to the huge increase in spending we had to do after the opioid crisis. We were promised when we signed on to the lawsuit against the pharmaceuticals, who everyone agrees caused this regular people to become drug addicts and swelled our jails and swelled our Health and Human Services budget, that we were going to get some money back from them to pay for this increase. Well, somehow that didn't happen, and somehow now, 5 years later, we're holding a budget deficit that's threatening to break our county of services that aren't mandated. And we still haven't seen any increase from the state. We've been ordered to spend money. And at the time I said, well, what if we had no money? We can't print our own money. So why aren't we challenging these mandates by refusing to pay? Make the state come down here and sue us or take over or whatever. So at least this debacle can be put under a public spotlight, and the newspapers can come and see what the state is doing to their own counties. I mean, we're fortunate we had a fund balance, or we'd have been in receivership years ago. So I suggest we do cut mandated services and make the state come down here and tell us that we can't. And maybe they fire us all, and then they come in and maybe they take state money and pay for these mandated services rather than breaking us slaves down here. So I don't agree that we can't challenge the mandates, and I would love to sit in a courtroom with the state and have them defend giving us unfunded mandates that have no ceiling on what they could potentially cost. This is ridiculous. Thank you.
This is Supervisor Quebec. May I be heard, Chairman?
Go ahead, Philomena.
Okay, so I have 2 points to make. Number one, public participation and transparency and accountability by the county and the county board. And number two is, similar concerns to what Supervisor Ortman raised with respect to the budget cuts that are inevitable. So with respect to public participation, I've had, ongoing concerns about the accountability that the board has. We hold our meetings at 9 a.m. We don't always post information in a way that people can hear. I mean, and it's that's why I made the very painful decision to vote, to postpone the appointment of my dear friend Dylan Jennings Bijekins, who was actually, I talked to several people and confirmed that Joe Rose had wanted him on the seat. I wanted him on the seat as well. But, I'm concerned about democracy and, the communication that the county has with the citizens about very important decisions that are happening. We heard from the League of Women Voters, who wants the county to hold a evening listening session about the referendum prior to the April referendum. In the Budget, Finance, and Executive Committee meeting that was held earlier this month, there was, the discussion was, we're not going to do that because it's going to be too expensive. Well, democracy is expensive, and if it's too expensive to get all the county board members there to an evening meeting and pay for our $50 to sit and participate in that meeting, then is there a way that the county the county administrator can do that? Clerk, could you do that with the department heads and sit through and talk about what all this means? It's very confusing. These things are very confusing to the average person. You have to take some time and sit down and think about it. And people don't have time. We're in a pandemic. People are concerned about getting their vaccines. And so we have to make things very simple for folks. Sit down and have an hour-long session and put it on the Zoom. I don't think it's going to take that much. I will go for free, you know, and I will listen. You know, obviously we can't be participating as county board members if it's not, you know, if it's not a session of our meeting. But I think this is really critical. And, you know, in terms of the next meeting that we're scheduling on April 20th, this seems like an even more important meeting to encourage people to be able to participate. I think we should hold that meeting at 4:30 or sometime in the evening. We all have learned how to get on a Zoom call, and so we don't have to worry about people driving around and potentially, you know, hitting deer in an evening session. And so, you know, those are my concerns about public participation. With respect to the, you know, this proposal that we only cut non-mandated services, I don't understand that at all. All right, you know, I worked for the court in 2008 at the financial crisis. I was, you know, kind of the low hanging fruit because I was just out of law school, a law clerk, barely making enough money to pay my bills. And, you know, and the budget cuts because of the financial crisis in the state were, you know, we were slated to lose all the law clerks. That was a proposal. The law clerks, absolutely essential. We worked for the courts. The courts would really slow to a halt if they didn't have the law clerks. And yet we have a proposal here, you know, we're going to be cutting extension and all these non-mandated services that are really important for the quality of life of our citizens, and yet we're going to hire some county commissioners to take on work of the judges because the judge is too busy. I mean, that this all doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, we really should be looking at across the board cuts because, you know, just because it's a mandated service doesn't mean you have to have the highest level of service. You know, if reducing the time that somebody is going to, you know, get their divorce to happen, means that we can maintain extension services to provide very essential services to families and children, and other of these non-mandated services related to providing, you know, essential support for homebound elders. I just, you know, I really think that we need to take a deeper look at these budget cuts and you know, consider a very, very different approach. That's all I have. Thank you.
Matt?
This referendum proposes raising the general levy and to fill some gaps in our budgets, but that increase is only for 5 years and then it goes away. It's not a permanent increase in the general levy. And so what this means is even if this referendum passes, if the county doesn't make substantial changes to how it operates, 5 years from now when this levy, if it passes, expires, the county is then going to be back in the position where without changes, it's going to continue to spend more money than it takes in. So we have to solve problems whether this thing passes or not. And I think if it passes and 5-6 years from now the county wants another referendum passed, I think that's going to be really hard to pass because people are going to largely say, well, wait a minute, we already just paid a lot more taxes than we would have. We haven't really talked about the debt levy too much either. The tax bill that you get is part general levy, somewhere towards 80%, and the other part's debt levy. The debt levy is used primarily for roads. The proposal with this 10 point something in there has a lower debt levy than we're going to need to do anywhere near the road maintenance going forward. If this referendum does pass, the first year is this 10 point something that's in your packet. But if the county wants to do more roads, the county's going to have to request a larger debt levy. And how that will happen, the administrator explained this to me a while back, is that when the county considers the budget in the fall, we post that in the paper, which I believe is our paper of public record. And then the public can weigh in during a public comment period whether or not they support that. If we're going to stick to that 10 point some %, we're not going to have enough in the debt levy. So I agree with Supervisor Ortman and Supervisor Quebec. We need to look at everything, and I believe we need to look at the mandated services too. We are the second poorest county in the state. And so what that means is we're on the leading edge of the state having to deal with how they have things set up. And I think we should start what I'm going to call nibbling at the edges of these mandated services. And I think we should keep the state apprised of what we're doing to nibble at these edges and cut our costs down so that the state says, okay, if you guys are that tight for money and you're cutting these things, is that okay or is that not okay? And work towards getting the legislature in Madison aware of just how challenging this is for some of the counties and ourselves on the leading edge of that. There's no way that we can continue down a path of putting everything that we have into mandated services, because even if this referendum passes, it only delays 5, 6, 7, 8 years where more and more gets cut. And the only thing on this path that we're headed, mathematically speaking, the only thing you'll be funding is your mandated services, but it could even get worse than that in 20 years. You couldn't even fund those things after a while because these expenses are going up faster than the revenue that the county has. Totally unsustainable. So I would agree with starting to cut some of these mandated services, nibbling at the edges a little bit, but making sure the state knows what we're doing and trying to get them to change things.
Clarence?
I agree. I've been on this county board for 25 years, and I've been a member of Health and Human Services for all 25 years and chair for, I think, the last 20 or 21 years. And as Charlie pointed out, we got in this situation because of mandated services that we had to provide in Health and Human Services and law enforcement due to the opioid crisis. And that threw those budgets way out of whack. And now we're paying for it. I'd like to point out that one of our board members on Health and Human Services for a long time was Jane Smith, who was a former Ashland City clerk. And every time we'd get a mandated service that we had to provide, but no funding for it, she'd make this comment, and she was famous for making this comment: we're expected to do more and more with less and less. Pretty soon we're going to be expected to do everything for nothing. And I think I agree with what's been said by some of the last speakers. We got to start going to the state and say, hey, we can't afford to do this anymore, and you got to give us some help.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Supervisor Franek?
Go ahead, Liz.
I'm just worried about the cuts to the Ashland County Aging Unit. Like Supervisor Quebec said, a lot of homebound elders, depend on that hot meal a day. Some use that for 2 meals. If we have to cut that funding to that program, what is going to happen to a lot of elders? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
County Clerk, please record that Matt McKenzie stepped into the meeting. And I see Terry Barningham had her hand up there, Dick. Terry Barningham.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to explain a little bit more about some of our mandated services in Health and Human Services, because, we have the vast majority, us and the Sheriff's Department, of county levy. So when you talk about cutting mandated services, the majority of our levy that is unfunded for mandated services is for our out-of-home placements for youth and adults. So for adults, it's adults who have severe mental illness and need to be placed in either state institutions, which are not covered by Medicaid. The county has to fund that. And also step-down facilities, so community-based residential facilities, as we try to bring them back into the community those are not things that can easily be carved at. I mean, they're at such a level, they have been court ordered, and we can't go against court orders. That is the same for children and youth who are in out-of-home care. They have been ordered by the courts to a certain level of care, very expensive, but again, ordered, it's out of our control. So I just wanted to clarify a little bit about that for Health and Human Services.
Laura has her hand up.
Okay, Laura.
It's good to hear you sigh. I'm glad I can do that when I come to have some comments. There's a lot of places where we need to have a really good long-term plan. Cutting just non-mandated services isn't going to fix our long-term issues. We do have problems with the health insurance. We may need a new partner that does our plan if we're not going to get some cost savings advice in monthly reports on these things, because we can do better with this health insurance that we've got. And the departments that are looking at cuts is all of them, because we don't know how much money we're going to have. So everybody's looking at them. It's not as simple as saying, oh, you've got 12 people, let's cut it down to 8. Because cutting each one of those positions might be 20% county funded and 80% state reimbursed or grant funded. So it needs to be a very specific kind of cuts that we're looking at, and that needs to be delved into. Now, we're not the only rural county that's going through this. I would love to see a whole bunch of rural counties that are having these same kind of issues just partner up and say, here we are. We can't fund our services, not even the mandated services, so let's take a stand. We know how it is above Highway 29, let alone above Highway 8. Grown up there all my lifetime, so we're not really heard. But also as a county board, we should be thinking about what we spend and how many positions we have. We are a rural county with 15,000 plus people, and we have 21 board members. Now, our census results are going to be delayed because of the pandemic. And if we decide to cut county board positions, it won't take effect until after the next election. But that also gives us a very unique opportunity to plan for that, how we're going to restructure and how we're going to take care of our committees. Because I've also heard in different meetings that we don't know what's going on in each one of the budgets. Now, we all have access to that data. I can look it up. I can ask department heads. We can look at each one of those things and be aware of what's going on in all the committees. But I also think as a county board, while we're having supervisor reports and things like that, maybe we need to bring some committee reports to the board. Because while we get resolutions and smaller pieces that are sent to the full county board, we don't exactly get the, hey, we're looking at doing this, this, this. Because maybe we would have been more aware of, the big projects that are going on for the airport. And maybe we could have slowed that down. But I don't feel we're getting all the information we need to be the best representatives that we can be if we're not bringing at least a 3-liner or a written report or something to the full county board. Because not everybody's going and looking at those different things, and not everybody has the time to go to every single one of the department meetings. We have some really smart people at our staff level, and they already are looking at what places they can make cuts and efficiencies, and if they can not hire a position and combine things, but we're still going to have to do more. And that's even if the referendum passes. I don't want to see possibly the sheriff's department have to do less people on shifts. I don't want to have to see, Meals on Wheels not be funded. I don't want to see the kids that really love their their 4-H not have a place to take their art or their animals or their socialization and learning. But we're at 911. There's no more kicking the can ahead, rolling it down the road, whatever things we want to say. We're at critical point. This is critical mass. And I think letting people know that we are going to cut some things no matter what is something that's going to make people at least believe in us a little bit more. I agree with all the supervisors that have talked so far and all their points. You know, I'm chair of public property and law enforcement. We're at a 5 o'clock meeting, and that's because that's when people can make it mostly. I know there's some second shifters and stuff. Also, I will be holding listening sessions for my district, and I will be putting out a Zoom link for that. I will be doing it at 5 to 7 p.m. on March 17th, 24th, and 31st to at least get some opinions on that and answer what questions I can. There's not a huge bunch of answers I will have along the ways besides knowing that each one of these departments are going through and trying to make these cuts. I will also try to live stream it onto Facebook. We'll see. I have not attempted that yet, but I will definitely try. But I want to make sure that at least the people of my district get heard. I will make the time for that. And if there's anyone that wants to email me or give me a call, I have definitely been taking that information already as to people who either want it passed or don't want it passed or have questions, and I try to answer those. And I think that's what our job is here, is making sure that information gets out so we can make sure that people get the services they need. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay. John.
I got one question, is that we have a public comments of 3 minutes. I think that maybe the Ashland County Board of Supervisors should put it down to a time limit too, because otherwise we're going to be here forever. I think we can do discussions some other ways too. So let's keep the 15 minutes time down some, I think.
This is Supervisor Ortman.
Hang on. George. George.
Well, you don't hear from me very often because I'm a man of few words until you get out in the hall. Anyway, few comments and a few thoughts. Laura talked about our board size. We've been at 90,000 budget since 92 when I first got on the board. We haven't increased it. Go look at Bayfield County. They went to 13 members and they got a $10,000 more bar. So if you're gonna cut back on your board to save money, it don't work. The last referendum, there was $200,000 in there for the youth. For all the problems we have, I just don't see the money going into the youth. If we're gonna change anything, we have to change it with the younger generation. Now, being the federal government is in a spaghetti feed right now, it's not an all bad thing, because I think everybody in this country knows more about their Constitution today than they did 5, 10, and 20 years ago, or when you were in high school. And people are interested in the Constitution because they got opinions on it. Number 2, are we going to have hearing sessions on this? Is this going to be in the paper? What Clark, I think it's wrote pretty good. But it should be published somewhere. Are we going to have a hearing session on it? People want to be able to give their feelings and their thoughts. Now, we've made a lot of mistakes over the 30 years that I've been on the board. And I've told a lot of people about them. The jail should have been built outside with 100 beds for $8 million. Now we have what we have. Our human services should have been a brand new building for 2 million. Now we've got 2 million into what we have, and we don't have nothing better than we had 15 years ago. But one of the things that really comes to mind, 15 years ago, we put together what was a program, and we updated it 5 years ago. In our comprehensive plan, the state gave us $250,000 to put a comprehensive plan in effect. 5 years ago, we updated that, and we cut it back so we could probably manage it. We asked the then, and Charlie knows what I'm talking about, we asked the chair then to keep that committee in force and go to every department. That's going to cost a few dollars for, per diem and that, but go to every department and talk to each department head and see what we can do, what they can do, what the comprehensive plan they can follow, and what they can't, so we can change it. This is a working document. It has never been put on the table and used. Land conservation is using it because there is a farmland preservation part in there. Otherwise, I don't see it being used anywhere. How can a board understand each of the departments if they don't have any contact? 3 years ago was the last year, or 4 years ago, that we had a county board retreat. A couple of the years we had those retreats, we had it out at the Splashland, and you had a chance to go and talk to every department head and understand. I knew more about the departments then than I do now again, because they change. We haven't had a retreat. We need that retreat. So the board members can talk, and we can talk to our department heads. This comprehensive plan would take care of a lot of that. We would understand their budgets. Every budget's different. Everybody's that on these committees are very wanting of their committees. I'm the same way. So if we're not going to use the comprehensive plan, this is one of the reasons we're in the trouble we are in today. We talk communication, communication, communication. I don't like the computer, and I probably never will. It's the way we do business, and it's the way we live, fine. But if you look in our budget, I remember when we were hiring out a computer consultant. They were coming in the 90s and the early 2000s and setting up our computers. We were going to save all this money if we went to the computer. If you look, our consultants now are $254,000, and we were supposed to save money. So you can see where a lot of our things have gone. And yeah, we're all part of it. But I still think that with this, we need listening sessions. People will understand. This needs to be put in the paper so people can read it. If you look at a Bayfield County, they got about a $15 million reserve. I actually asked the administrator over there if they wanted to rent Madeline Island for about 10% more than we get. He didn't think that was a good idea. But anyway, we need to get back on course.
Anyone else want to comment on the referendum?
So I'm open to, certainly, if we want to have an evening listening session, and I've been a strong advocate of having evening county board meetings since the first month I got here in 2019, and the board had turned me down. I actually have a letter from the Department of Revenue that just came in about an hour ago. I'll be going over on item number 6. They actually are recommending that we have evening meetings also. So we will put that on the agenda and take a vote on that at some point here. But I'm all for having a Zoom meeting if people want to, I can have a meeting at, 5 o'clock on the 23rd and basically open it up to all county people to, to listen, to basically give their comments if the board so wants that to happen. I don't have any problem with that at all.
Yeah, Dylan?
This
So
is
I'm new
Supervisor Ortman. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm a little sorry about that. I'm a little new here, but this is quite the predicament to walk right into, right? But what I will say, and just kind of reiterating what our relative here was just talking about, most organizations, successful entities, board, bodies, councils, whatever it be, have strategic plans or comprehensive plans, right? And those plans do not work unless you're constantly and consistently updating it and maintaining a matrix to make sure that you're following what your plans are. And your plans are basically, driven by your community, your constituents, your department heads, and your leadership, right? And so, I mean, it kind of seems like everybody's, kicking the same ball here and saying the same thing. It sounds like, we need to have more of that, more public engagement. And either redevelop a strategic plan, because the strategic plan ultimately reinforces and goes hand in hand with your budget process as well. As your constituents and your community tell you what's priority for them and what's important, that drives our budget process, right? And so, I feel like that's a very important piece of of leadership. That's a very important piece of how we should be operating, just in my opinion, and seeing it work elsewhere. And yeah, that would mean a lot more public engagement sessions, a lot more sessions with department heads, sessions with leadership, all that all around. I think that's really important if we're looking down the barrel of a big deficit here. We need to have our goals aligned with one another, and we need to create some synergy around that process if possible. So I'm always a big advocate for working together, right? And trying to come together to realign those goals so that we can, hopefully narrow down the scope of what things, are absolutely priority for us as a body. So thank you.
Anyone else want to comment on the referendum? I've just got a couple of things to say here quick, and then we've got to move along. The budget deficit that it seems like we face every year, I really agree with Clarence and what he said about Jane Smith. Pretty soon they're going to want us to do everything for nothing. We are not getting any cooperation whatsoever out of Madison. My estimation, this is a very simple fix. We could raise the sales tax and raise the gas tax without hurting anybody like as much as this referendum is going to hurt. And everybody that passes through the state and does business in the state would be helping us pay for it. This is, I think, is a simple remedy, which they probably will never consider because they're not looking out for our best interest. That's my comment on this. I think it goes right back to the state government, the hole that we're in. They dug with a front end loader, and now we got to try to get ourselves out of it. It's an impossible situation. Thank you.
So I'll host a listening session on Tuesday, the 23rd. I don't know, 5 p.m. 5 p.m. fine? I'll have it, I'll host it up in the boardroom if people want to come in, and then we'll record it on Zoom. So, and I'll have staff, I'll try to get as many staff as I can to, the experts in the fields to attend at 5 p.m. that are available that day. Then you can watch that later.
Okay, if there are no more comments on the referendum, we'll move along. Hearing none, we'll move to Item 5, Resolution RO3 2021-1383, honoring Joseph Martin Rose. Mark?
Would you want to read this, Dick, or you want me to read this to you?
You can read it.
Whereas Joseph Martin Rose served in the 12th Supervisor District of Ashland County Board since 2014, whereas Ashland County recognizes the exceptional and dedicated service that Joe Rose has rendered to Ashland County during his term in office, and whereas Joe Rose was dedicated to the land and the environment of the entire Chequamegon Bay area as an environmental rights activist, and whereas Joe Rose passed away February 23rd, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that Ashland County Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the entire county, mourn the loss of this dedicated county board member, and be it further resolved that Ashland County Board of Supervisors wish Joe Rose's family health and peace as they mourn the loss of their loved ones. Motion is made to adopt by Supervisor Berlin.
Do we have a second?
Pranik. Second.
Second was Murdock.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this resolution. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 6 on the agenda, financial consultant proposal.
Okay, we actually have a last minute change on this, and we basically went through the finance committee, a joint finance and executive committee. We went through 2 proposals to look at cash flow analysis. The county treasurer is very concerned that we might be running out of cash fourth quarter in a temporary basis. As you know, the county gets its predominant amount of cash twice a year in property taxes. And we were very low on cash this past year. And we had to utilize the debt levy cash in order to make things work. And so with that, we went to the finance committee to get an outside consultant to analyze our cash flow and then also put in a fiscal plan management program. We had 2 proposals. One was from a couple of individuals who are more boots on the ground, granular level, working with our current software program, and then another one from Ehlers and Associates. Ehlers and Associates is a large financial consulting firm that many people have used. Bayfield's used it. I've used it before in the past. The finance committee basically made a recommendation to engage Ehlers for a cash flow analysis, $500, and a fiscal management plan not to exceed $23,000, and use the contingency fee to fund this. I have been working with the Department of Revenue for many weeks now, and the division administrator is concerned, obviously, when we talk about fiscal mandates. One of the concerns from the state is what happens if we do get to the point where we say we are going to have a tough time completing court order mandates. And they're concerned about that. And so what they want to be able to do, they basically have this letter, which just literally came out at 9 o'clock today. Thank you for your time and effort to assist Ashland County in rebuilding their financial picture. We appreciate you taking the time to explain the challenges that you have been dealt. We understand from these conversations that the county is in dire financial situation and facing insolvency. We also understand that you have taken some immediate steps to mitigate dire financial pictures. These changes are as follows. And then basically levy the settlement, the settlements with the property taxes, which are $500,000 and growing every year, changes to the healthcare plan, basically not having retirees 65 off the healthcare plan, recouping some money. They basically, I've asked a couple things of the state. I've asked the state to consider basically being able to recoup court order via debt levy. And so this is within the debt levy law that you can basically put on debt levy court orders and settlements. We think that the framers maybe had intended this to be something bad happens, you know, your plow truck runs over somebody and you get sued. But the law seems to me, in my interpretation of, is that we could take all court orders. We had basically a little over $1 million of court orders last year. Now, granted, it's still money that has to come from the citizens via debt levy, but it would basically exceed the general levy limit laws. We're looking at a referendum, looking at employee health care, looking at quarter evaluations. After reviewing the situation and the limited authority the Department of Revenue have, we have compiled a list of ideas for you to recommend and respond to. We welcome the opportunity to discuss these 3 items with you and the county board. First, the county should request a grant from the state of Wisconsin that would cover the cost of a county-wide financial evaluation. This review would need to identify a budget gap to compile a preliminary understanding of the county's financial picture. Department of Revenue is familiar with companies that provide this services and would be willing to partner to provide the financial path to stability. Second, we would require transparency with the residents of Ashland County. It's imperative that residents of Ashland County are fully aware of the challenges in front of them. The county board should host hearings to present a full and honest presentation of the financial situation along with recommendations that are being considered to correct the financial picture. Third, Ashland County would be open to long-term actions to ensure the financial viability of the county and its services going forward. This may require changes to the current government structure, may or may not include reviewing the size of the county board and adjusting meeting times to evenings, conducting a resource and staff study, adjusting the budget to include fiscal plans beyond 5 years, and hiring a financial director / HR director. Finally, it is in the state's interest that we receive guarantees of proper use of any additional funds to help secure county's long-term financial future in order to guard against your county falling into insolvency. These would include additional general obligation debt, property tax increases, allowing to increase the sales tax beyond 5%, 0.5% temporarily, state funding, state aid loans, and federal funding. Repairing your financial and leveling with your residents is going to be tough, and difficult decisions are likely to be needed. We know you're working hard to rally the county board to bring solutions to your issues. We look forward to discussing these and any possible solutions to assist you. We look forward to conversations. John Dickett, Division Administrator, State and Local Finance Division, Wisconsin Department of Revenue. And he had a meeting with the Secretary of Revenue just the other day on Friday afternoon, actually. And so I have been knee deep in with this. My recommendation on item number 6, financial consultant and authorizing the engagement of Ehlers, is that I would like to pull this from the agenda and not engage Ehlers at this time. I'd like to work with the Department of Revenue and get a grant from them for around $20,000 to $30,000 for a fiscal overview of where the county is. And I think one of those things we need to really seriously look at is, as we develop this budget, is going forward for 2022, regardless if the referendum passes or does not pass, is my recommendation is that the county hire a financial director / HR director, because that is outside of my skill set to do that for you. And I think the state has recommended that. Your auditors have recommended it for 10 consecutive years. And so with that, I would just like to, I'd like to withdraw this particular agenda item.
This is Supervisor Ortman.
Go ahead, Charlie.
You want this removed or postponed, Clark?
Well, I would like to remove it and then bring it back, because my gut guess is when we bring it back, it will be different. It will not be the current hopefully it won't be a contingency fund decision from the county board with Ehlers. It will be accepting of a grant from the state and engaging another financial operation to, to help us analyze where we're at. So I would just like to remove it.
Okay, well, the way I look at it, it was just a proposal you gave us, and we don't need to do any actions on it at all. We can just move on. Do others feel that way?
Yeah, unless somebody has an objection, that would be the only thing. If nobody has an objection, we can just move on to the next agenda item.
Clark?
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's Kathy Schutte. Could we say that we'll table the issue till a later date?
That would be fine.
I make a motion that we table it.
Second, Supervisor Quebec.
Point of information, if we table it, it's supposed to be brought up at the next meeting that we have. So tabling it just pushes it off to our next county board meeting.
I would think
I was looking for a little more flexibility than that.
You need to postpone it.
20th, we would have an update on this particular item with the grant from the state and an engagement of possibly a state recommended financial, consultant. So I'm prepared for April 20th on that.
Okay, moving right along.
You should probably take a vote on that. There was a motion and a second.
Motion and a second to remove the consultant proposal.
To table it till April 20th, yes.
All right, all those in favor of tabling the consultant proposal? Do we need a vote?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries, thank you. I'd like to change the agenda, probably should have done it before. We have a lot of people from the boat club here. They've been sitting here all morning long, waiting for us to do this. I should have done this early on, I apologize. I'd like to move number 8, where number 7 is. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Isn't there?
Anyone opposed? Say no. Okay, we'll go to number 8, the resolution RO3-2021-1382, Chequamegon Outboard Boating Club lease.
Okay, so your packet is rather long, 31 pages. The staff, I commend the staff of Ashland County here putting together the history of the boat club. Basically, we received, as I alluded to earlier, we received the property when the first 25-year lease was enacted, that the county must renew the lease. Coming up on the in the 2010 lease, it was removed, and it said it was the intent of the organizations to renew the lease. I did add to the packet, put online an email to all the county board members, email that came to me this weekend from our attorney. And I asked 2 specific questions. Can the county negotiate a different lease with the boat club? It is my opinion the county is free to negotiate a new lease with the boat club, which may include changes to rental amounts and or changes to any items in the lease. The county is also free to choose not to execute a new lease with the boat club. The initial 85 lease stated the annual lease was to automatically renew for 25 years, and parties intended to execute another subsequently similar lease after the expiration of the 25-year term. After the expiration of the initial lease, subsequent annual leases were executed from approximately 05 to 09. The most recent lease from 010 through November of 2020. The most recent lease, 25 automatic renewal language was removed, and only provision related to the execution of the new lease as follows. Negotiation new lease. If the terms and provision of the lease are complied with by the boating club, it was the intent of the parties that by the time this lease expires, the parties will have negotiated a subsequent similar lease. This paragraph does not create any binding obligations on either of the parties to automatically renew the contract or enter into another lease. It states the party's intent, but does not place a requirement on either party to continue the terms. the parties would have easily negotiated an automatic renewal clause if, as they did in 1985, but the agreement between the parties did not contain any such requirements. The inclusion of a statement that they may enter into a subsequent lease must also logically be interpreted that they may not enter into a subsequent lease. Further, the 85 deed did not contain any deed restrictions regarding continual lease obligations or any other restrictions. Due to lack of such deed restrictions or contrary binding language on the executed lease, the Ashland County owns this property is free, simple, with no restrictions, and is free to do as it desires. What happens if the boat club, if this lease is not renewed? Lease is not renewed or renegotiated, the county have the right to require boathouse tenants to vacate their houses. Boathouse owners refuse to voluntarily vacate the leased property. The county could commence eviction to remove from the property. While the lease and the boating club identifies boathouses as private property, the boathouses are treated as real property that would belong to the county pursuant to the 85 deed. I've confirmed with the DNR waterway specialist, Dan Harrington, that the ownership of the boathouses would belong to Ashland County. While the boathouses themselves extend in inimical waterways of Lake Superior, the ownership of the boathouses belong to the riparian owner, which is the owner of the shoreline which the boathouses are located. Thus, if Ashland County decides not to renew the lease with the boating club, Ashland could evict the current tenants from the boathouses and do whatever it chooses with the structure. So with that, the packet that you saw basically has the proposed lease, and the proposed lease would basically extend it for another 25 years at $150 per year. The proposed motion for this agenda item is move to approve boat club lease for X amount of dollars per year for a period of X years, if the county board so intends to do this, or if the county board intends to, ask for something else. So with that, we would seek a motion to approve the lease if the county board so wishes.
Supervisor Ortman,
Yes.
I would move to approve the boat club lease for $150 per year from 2021 to 2035, which is what the forestry department originally recommended.
Supervisor Quebec, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve the lease for 25 years?
15.
For $150. I believe we better, yes, Pat. Go ahead.
I took a drive down to the boathouse yesterday and looked around there. It's been a long time since I was there. The first thing I noticed is there's no sign on Highway 2 that says there's a public boat launch. So if this lease is renewed, which I will support, although I'm going to suggest a shorter term, there should be signage on Highway 2 that there's a public boat launch there. There is a sign a block in or so by the Artesian Well that there's a sign there. I also did an online search using Google trying to find boat launch, City of Ashland boat launch, Ashland County, etc. I couldn't find anything that popped up the boat launch. So if we're going to make this, I think it should be better known that there's actually a public boat launch there. I spoke to several people and asked them if they knew there was a public boat launch by Anglers All, and their immediate reaction was they thought it was private because they had not seen a sign or found it saying that it was a public boat launch. When you go to that property, the property itself goes down into a flood plain, as someone mentioned here earlier. It's not a place I don't think that anyone really could build much of a building. It's like a house or a restaurant. It's just too low. There's a commercial building up on the bluff. So as far as the value of the land, if the county did take it, I'm not sure the county could do much with it anyway. If you look at the aerial view, there's one in our packet and I found another one. My estimate is there's space for roughly 12 trucks and trailers down there. There's not a lot of space. The road is such going in a circle so that people can get in and out with those things. There's just not a lot of usable space. And if we did put a sign up on Highway 2 that there's a public boat launch and made it show up in a Google search, I think the county would need to consider how they're going to improve that property so there's better parking. The roads there, and this really struck me, they're in horrible shape. And so one of the questions I have to the board is, if the county is going to take a rent check, what are we doing for that property? It clearly needs a number of loads of gravel. There's no bathrooms down there, and a lot of the boat club owners are getting to be older, and a lot of us know what that means at this point in life. If we have families down there with kids, you know, they usually would prefer some bathrooms, some running water. There's not a fish cleaning station. There's not a hose there to rinse boats out to try to minimize the invasive species. And it really strikes me as a property that's not being maintained other than what the boat club owners are doing, which I think is as much as we can expect of them, given they no longer own the property and they're already paying some rent. So the 150 is a nominal amount, but I think the real question the county board should ask itself is, what do we want to do with this property going forward? My suggestion would be that the boat club owners, the county, and the city of Ashland engage in a conversation to see if the city would help out with this. The planning director and Parks and Rec director are well versed with getting grant money for waterfront projects. They've done a lot down, you know, on the waterfront, as most of you know. The Superfund site just to the east of the marina, that is going to be redone. That does include a boat launch there. And our county board chairman is the chair of the Harbor Commission. And so he's very familiar with this. And when the city updated the waterfront plan, as far as boats go, east of the marina where they're putting in that new boat launch, that's for bigger boats. But the city counts on these launch at anglers all for putting in smaller boats. And this is important because down at the waterfront where the marina is in Crayer Park, it can get crowded at certain times of the year. There's only so much room there. So I think it's in the interest of the city to also work with the county and the boat club owners there to seek some grant money to improve the property where the boathouses are. That would be good for the city, it'd be good for the county. If we extend this lease, I would prefer a shorter term, but I would like to see, the main thing I'd like to see is the city and the county, the boat hub owners, working with the city, trying to get some grant money. You need gravel, you need better parking areas down there. You certainly, I think, need bathrooms down there. There's also no garbage disposal down there for the public to put their garbage, you know, which means somebody needs to pick that up. The city of Ashland does charge $5 to launch a boat. It could be considered to, you know, charge $5 down there to launch a boat, or, you know, perhaps an annual permit to bring in some revenue to help offset those costs of those improvements. So, thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Clarence.
I think last meeting we decided to postpone action on this. None of us had any information about what was going on down there. And so we've had an opportunity to get more information. And I think over the last 35 years that this lease has been in effect, we've gotten a lot of value for that money that the boat club has paid to lease that property. And they've already pointed out some of the things that they've done down there. And so the value that we've gotten in return is much greater than what they've paid to lease that property. I also understand that the individual boat, the owners of those boathouses pay personal property taxes on those boathouses. So that's another source of revenue that's coming into the county in addition to the lease money.
Thank you, Clarence. And I don't know if it was mentioned before, but one of the things I want to bring up, a lot of people don't know, is the fact that the boat club, via their dues, at one point in time, put $5,000 in the break wall. So they've invested money in this deal, and I think we should pass this lease. And we have a motion and a second on the table. I think it's time to vote.
Dick, could I speak before you take the vote?
Go ahead.
The boat club people who maintain this area are good quality people. They have been good stewards of the land, and they've taken very good care not to wreck the waterfront. This is also a family-friendly thing that they do not charge for the boat to launch your boats from there, because it's for the smaller boats. And the shooties in the community, in the county, use this all the time to launch a small boat to go out fishing with their family. We have people flying in from Florida on March 5th to go fishing out at this particular boat landing. And I absolutely want this passed at the amendment that they're talking about today. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick
Chair.
note. I'm in the middle of something.
Mhm.
What Pat Kenny had mentioned about approaching the city for taking over ownership of this, that makes an awful lot of sense, because the city's had a lot of success with acquiring federal grants for lakeshore development, and it just makes a lot of sense. So I think that that's a possibility, and it should be written into the contract that the contract could be opened up, a mutual agreement by both parties to go into that negotiation. Thank you. Now we'll take a vote. Can we do a roll call
Chair?
on this?
Somebody's got their hand up.
Laura's got her hand up. Laura has her hand up.
Go ahead.
I have a few things here, and I had talked to a couple people that own boathouses because they had reached out to me. Part of the reason why we took possession of this piece of land and the boathouses was because they could not get a permit for a break wall. Also, when we did that, there were back taxes on that we took responsibility for. Just to add a little bit to the history. I worry about, one, our liability. I understand they do repairs, pickups, do the lawns and everything, and I appreciate all that stuff, but we still have our name on the title of that, and if something happens down there, what exactly is our liability? Also, precedent. Now, from my understanding, the sales of the property are determined by the boat club, even though they are only the leasees on this property. I don't know if Josh Rowley has any more information on that or not, but I thought that's what we had discussed, because one of them had said that they had talked with him. Now, what if Laura Negro wanted to take her property and make the Laura Negro Club and gift it or give it to the county for $1, and then I only have to pay rent for $150 on it every year to continue using it because I wrote that into the contract? I'm worried about precedent that we set with this. We should have a little more input on the things that go on there. You call it, Laura Negro's campground or camp by house or whatever you want to do it. But what precedent do we set when we do this? I understand the boat clubs are a totally legal entity. I understand that they are great people because I know at least one of them. I don't know what kind of inspections that we've done to make sure that in that lease it says that there are only certain things that you can do with the boathouses, exterior, interior, and if I remember correctly, there's only so much percent of the boathouse's value that you can put into repairs or things like that for these boathouses. Now beyond that, if the county has them, and this is, and I do believe that this is just regular folk. It's not fancy like the marina. It's just regular folk that are doing this. But like Pat said, everybody thought it was private. I've driven down through there and I see that it is a whole bunch of disrepair and not disrepair. That's not what I mean to say, that the roads there aren't the greatest and stuff like that. But should we be finding a couple spots on there and making a few of them for rent? But, you know, Airbnb it or something like that. I mean, I think this needs to be in a little bit more of a discussion. The couple of people I talked to, I said the same thing, is it just needs to be fair. And if it's only a boat club and it's only their people that they decide to sell them to, and we own the property, it just doesn't seem like it's fair. And I think that's part of what we do when we come here for the board is those kind of things. So I'm going to have to vote against this because I don't feel that the length of the contract is appropriate, and I don't feel that we've discussed it enough at this point.
Clarence?
I may be wrong in this, but in reading that lease, the limits to the improvements did not apply to the individual boathouses, I don't think. It just applies to the clubhouse. Am I correct in that? So I, as far as what you were saying, Laura, as far as the improvements to the boathouses, I don't think that applies. It just applies to the clubhouse. And I think that I mean, there's some stipulations on what they can do to the individual boathouses, but I think some of them are quite nice inside and others may not be as nice, but I think it's up to the individual owners, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Supervisor Franek. May I offer my 2 cents?
Go ahead.
Hello? Okay. From what I had heard from one of the boathouse club members was that this was put on the historic site. Correct me if I'm wrong, if that was City Historical Society, I'm not sure. And I just want to echo about how much they have put into this to keep up the maintenance of the land down there, picking up the garbage, pulling the dock in and out, ensuring the facility building, hiring the constructor with the break wall, making sure that's all replaced. And the land was donated to the county. They're just a small membership. They can't afford, a big fee to pay every year to do all this work. And I believe, and I had talked to one of the boat club owners or members and said that this is morally wrong, what we're trying to do to them. And I believe that. Thank you.
Mike? And I'll second that. We have a motion and a second on the table to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 I raised this. I haven't had a chance of and couldn't be seen. So, my comments is that we can't always be fair. Our goal really should be to be reasonable. And having gotten the background information on this issue, I think what we're doing here is fair as well as reasonable, which is unusual.
Thanks, Matt.
Who made the motion and the second to call the question?
Yes, there is.
Who made the motion?
Mike Berlin.
And the second?
I did. It's been a long meeting already. Can we do a roll call on this?
Yes. William Metzinger.
Yes.
Clarence Campbell.
Yes.
Patrick Kinney. Charles Ortman.
Yes.
Elizabeth Franek.
Yes.
Richard Pufall.
Yes.
Ronald Stinzor.
Dylan Jennings. Michael Berlin. Richard Corpola. Richard Corpola.
Yes.
George Micka. George Micka.
Yes.
Martin Vitek.
Yes.
Richard Huber.
Yes.
Doreen Hannanen.
Yes.
John Wiener.
Yes.
Kathy Schutte.
Yes.
Gary Murdoch.
Yes.
Laura Negro.
No.
Matt McKenzie.
Yes.
Philomena Quebec.
Yes.
19 yeses, 1 no.
Thank you. Congratulations to the boat club. You finally got your lease back, so you can go back in business like you were. I'd like to take a break now. I think we should take about a 5-minute break here. We've been at this for a couple hours, back 2.5 hours. Okay.
All right, we will pause the recording momentarily here. I start the recording.
Recording.
And all right, go ahead.
Now we'll go back to number 7 on the agenda, EMS in Ashland.
Okay, this is not a new issue for you. I've been working every other week with the Towns Association, WCA, the EMS director that you had heard from in the public comment section concerning what are the solutions for this issue. As we've talked about before, the long-term viability of volunteer services for EMS is tenuous at best. One of the things that we're working on currently is seeing if we can get these towns, and you can read your write-up at 6 pages long. I'm not going to read it for you. We're looking at these towns down here, basically seeing if they can get together to form an ambulance district. So that would provide them with greater purchasing power. Part of the issue is, it almost needs, Marengo basically has just started their service. They're going to get certified shortly. They bought a rig. Mellon is currently operating and added 2 towns. So the question is, would we be able to get Marengo and Mellon involved with an ambulance district? There is legislative push now, which just makes my head hurt, because they're looking at basically making it, as a public comment caller, Alan, had said, a county shall provide this service if a town can't. So that would basically rest it back on us. So we would have to basically start, and if state law changes and they feel they have good legislative buy-in for this session, so that would mean that if these towns can't provide this service, we would have to do it again, yet another county mandate. The money would it come from a EMS, a countywide EMS program is exempt from the general levy limit law. So in this case, we would levy additional dollars on the whole county to provide the service. The problem comes into municipalities that have double taxation. So you have LaPointe, you have Mellon, you have the city of Ashland currently levy tax dollars for their service. If the county took over the service, we would be basically the equivalent of a backup service to like the city of Ashland or the city of Mellon, but we would provide services with rigs and other. It gets very complicated very quickly. I just wanted to give a brief update, let you know we are working on it, but based on state law, we may end up getting into the EMS business.
Pat?
What if you have a township that says, well, instead of us paying for this, let's let the county pay for it? What's going to prevent towns and cities from canceling their services and letting the county pick up the tab? Does that issue come up?
Yeah, so we just discussed this issue last night. We had a meeting between 4 and 6 o'clock last night, and I kind of brought that same thing. Part of the issue, and they've seen this elsewhere, where counties have taken over this. There are other counties that have a countywide service, but individual cities or individual towns still maintain their service. And part of that is the expectation of response time. So if Mellon decides they don't want to do this, but the service is a half hour away or 40 minutes away, they may continue to just want to do their own service in addition to having a county backup, just because of the amount of time it takes to get a response. So that is an issue that we'll be working through the legislators' legislation. But right now, the only requirements are that a town shall provide this service. And they want to just switch it to, they just want to add counties shall provide this service also. So it wouldn't preclude cities from doing this, but it would basically, the county would be the fail-safe. So when you look at the map and you have these townships which basically can't find anybody to provide service for them, the county would have to step in and basically tax the entire population of the county in order to provide services for towns which don't have the tax base to provide this service. So this is a non-action item. This is just an update that and I'll bring this back again on April 20th, back to the county board again for further updates, because this does concern me if we get forced in a position of adding another department.
Clark, this is Alan with the Wisconsin EMS Association. I'm free to take questions as well to better explain this. Currently, like you said, it's mandated for towns. The idea, excuse me, that we would actually get it mandated for everyone, including cities, villages, and towns, because if you think about it, and this gives you options though on a county level, options on a town level, they can hire it out, to a contract service. They don't have to do it themselves directly. Same thing on a county level. You'd be able to hire it out if you wanted to. But when you're taking into account EMS, currently those towns, you dial 911, you don't necessarily mean anybody's going to show up. So this could be a life or death of people that you represent in your different districts. That's what I kind of tell people to think about. It's not like a separate program or anything else. This is life and death, 911 calls, and nobody's going to show up because nobody can afford to pay for it, to be honest.
Yeah, so we had Dave McGuire, the director for our Emergency Communications 911 Center, was on the call yesterday also, because as we get calls for areas that don't have 911, that don't have EMS coverage, we put out a mutual aid request. And so what's happening is this takes a lot of time. We're diverting our dispatchers to call this place, can they respond? It takes them a while to figure that out. Call another place, can they respond? If they can't respond, so we're going down we're ticking off these lists of asking people for mutual aid if they have the capacity to respond to an area which does not have EMS coverage. And one of the concerns, I think, is this could be a contagion as we end up with, a challenging volunteerism within this particular field. And I think a lot of people that go through the training, they would hope to be paid more like a career versus a volunteer. But Alan is part of this. Alan basically is the juggernaut in this town and the state. He's the one who kind of pieces this together. He is the one who's working very closely and helping Marengo get their operation up and running. So, any further questions? Oh, the question over there.
Yes, I have a question. The ones that don't have ambulance service are not contracted to anybody to provide a service. So if the county has to take this over, let's say down the road, can the county have a contract with whoever needs the ambulance service so that they can make money? That's what happens now. I mean, Mellon contracts to Morris and Eton Ashland, and that's how they get a substantial amount of their money. So I would think it would be the same way with the county if we had to do it.
Yeah, so one of the intentions, and I talked to Alan about this yesterday, was, you know, just from my own personal capacity to manage more in the county, is I don't want to manage another department and hire more staff to do this. We would just want to be a conduit for money to flow to basic contractors would be the intent. The question is, can we find somebody that can do the contracts? The Park Falls basically put in a $400,000 or $500,000 bid for Gordon and Shannon Golden, but that means they had to they didn't have the capacity to respond to more without hiring and getting more rigs and putting something up there around Station 13. So yeah, we would hope not to have to hire staff to do this and just be a conduit, but I don't know where it would end up.
Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll move right along to the 9, payment of invoices and due date limits.
Okay, this is a policy which we're instituting concerning late bills. We did receive some bills from the court systems that were 14 or 15 months old from the previous year, from fall of 19, and we received them in 21. We don't really have a policy that says we can't do this, so we want to adopt a policy that says all bills to the county, if over $1,000, are to be billed quarterly. At the end of the year, bills are to be in to the county by the end of February for the following year, unless exempted by a contract. And with that, I'll seek a motion. Motion by Berlin. Second by Bill.
Was there any explanation as to why it took so long for those bills to come in?
It was a legal issue, a lawyer that we basically, again, we have to mandate, we have to provide indigent lawyer fees by the state law. And they were providing those types of services along with guardian ad litems. I believe the individual just didn't want to receive the income in 20. And so basically just delayed everything for that year. But it does bring up, and we did interact with the Bar Association here in the Chequamegon Bay area, because some cases are so small, lawyers don't want to bill out just $100. So that's why we said anything that's over $1,000 over a quarter and an end date of end of February for the previous year.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to adopt a invoice policy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 10 on the agenda, Clark, is cash flow concerns. Didn't we
This
address
came,
that a little bit with the financial consultant?
we talked about this a little bit, but this basically came from the Finance Committee also, with the treasurer's concern about lack of cash flow during the months of December and early January. We want staff to be able to utilize the $500,000 from the city of Mellon if we need cash to cover operations, and direct staff to arrange a line of credit so that if we have a short-term cash flow need, we would have the option to draw on an additional $500,000. So the treasurer basically is looking for guidance. When she needs money, she wants to be able to utilize the Mellon money first, and then the CD, which we've been trying to keep in there to get interest, because we get like $40,000 or $50,000 a year in interest off of it. And so we're trying to keep that in there. But if we basically burn through the Mellon money and we cash in the CD, she wants availability to basically have a line of credit for $500,000, which would be obviously approved by the county board chairperson if we needed it. The problem is, if we need it, we're only going to have a couple days to respond to this. This item, I would be comfortable not looking at the line of credit now until we get a cash flow analysis, if the board so chooses. we could wait until this summer till we get a cash flow analysis on that. But I think it would be beneficial for the county to allow staff to use the $500,000 mail-in money so we don't have to cash in the $1 million CD if that's the case. So either one of those would be amenable towards my concerns.
Clark? Kathy Schutte here. I'd like to make the motion that we adopt this cash flow concerns and use the city of Mellon money if we need it.
Supervisor Ortman, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the cash flow concerns. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, so we will basically utilize in the cash flow analysis, we use the $500,000 before the $1 million. We will wait for the cash flow analysis, hopefully from the state grant, to analyze if we need to take out a short-term line of credit for the fall. We have plenty of time to analyze that.
Thank you.
Supervisor Ortman, may I ask a question, Dick?
Go ahead.
Why do we need permission to use the money? What plans do we got for it other than to use it for county business?
Well, when we received the $500,000 from the city of Mellon over a year ago, there was restrictions put on it by the county board, and we want to just remove those restrictions.
What were the restrictions? Do you remember?
Well, originally the restrictions were such that they would basically utilize it for possible equipment for law enforcement. And then after that, we basically put it into, there was some controversy on that, if you remember, last spring. And then the county board voted to basically remove those restrictions, but allocate it during the normal budgetary process. So in this case, it would be outside the budgetary process if we need it. So I'm just basically just allowing that money to be utilized in the same fashion as all the other cash that we have in the bank.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we go to number 11.
Number 11 comes from Land Information Council. We're basically just looking to update the resolution and remove IT representation from Land Information Council. And this is basically just come from the recommendation of the Director for Land Information and the members. So with that, I'd seek a motion to approve the Land Information Council Resolution R03-2021-1377.
I'll make that motion to approve. We have a second. Rich Huber seconded. All those in favor of approving the resolution say aye.
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 Anyone opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 12, zoning ordinance amendment.
There's approximately 2,265 identified sanitary systems within Ashland County. This fee will help offset the cost of the county and taxpayers for specific work required and needed by the zoning department to do this. The ordinance and packet is in your information. I would seek a motion move to adopt the proposed amendment to the Ashland County Private Sewage System Ordinance.
I'm gonna make a motion to table this. This is Supervisor Kabak. I reviewed this, and my concern is that there is no exemption for folks who are under the jurisdiction of the tribe, Bad River Tribe, that also has a very good POTUS system and has for a very long time had inspections happening, and IHS is also involved in the process of working with tribal members on their private sewage systems. So I think it's really we need some work on this ordinance to just provide some exemptions for folks who are on the reservation and should be, within the tribal POTUS system.
I will bring Josh Rowley up to the microphone to discuss that issue since I really don't know.
In regards to your question, the zoning office has no authority to work with tribal members on tribal property or within the boundaries of the reservation. So those properties would not be affected by this. It would only be the properties that fall under the jurisdiction of the county zoning ordinances. So we would have no way to enforce or add this since you're out of our jurisdiction to the properties that you're speaking about.
Well, I mean, there's people who have fee property within the reservation. And there's an ongoing dispute related to that jurisdiction. So I did make a motion to table, and I think we would be looking for a second for that motion.
This is Supervisor Negro. I'll make that motion or that second.
Somebody at the mic.
No, I'll
Okay.
to Laura. Thank you, Laura.
You're up, Gary.
No, as long as that motion was seconded, I'm fine.
Now, do we have a motion on the second?
There's a motion and a second to table this. I guess the only question we have is it's already gone through a committee. The committee's already approved it. The committee's already recommended it to the county board. The county board should either be, unless there's specific language in this particular section right here, the annual maintenance fee for each improved property as subject to the private sewage system ordinance 1507-1 within Ashen County, except those served by municipal sewer, shall be assessed an annual fee of $8 per year. The annual fee shall be assessed and added to the property tax bill at the rate established by the Zoning and Land Committee. A late fee will also be assessed in the event the maintenance fee is not paid by the deadlines as established for property tax payments, and will adhere to the same penalty. So we're here to try to generate some more money for this department. And if you're, I guess the question is what language needs to be changed? I'd rather just change the language and get it approved than basically bring it back in April.
Well, there are tribal members that have that are under this. They're paying taxes to the county under dispute because they're on the reservation, and there's a lawsuit against the county and their claim is that they shouldn't be under the jurisdiction of the county and they shouldn't be subject to county fees, but because their land is not held under trust, they continue to be subject to county taxation. But my understanding, and maybe Mike Berlin or Dylan Jennings could confirm this, is that many of those folks are within the tribe's jurisdiction with respect to the tribe's POTUS ordinance, and they should not be subject to any kind of fees because they're already covered, they're already regulated by the tribe, and the county really wouldn't be doing anything for these particular residents. So this would be an unfair fee that would be levied upon them. If we could change the language to exempt these folks, except for those served by municipal sewer and under jurisdiction of the Bad River Tribe POTUS ordinance, I would be fine with passing this this regulation or this policy update.
Yeah, just point of clarification, we're not supposed to be debating laying on the table. It's not debatable. Yeah, we can't debate this motion. The motion's been made and seconded. We have to call the question or have a vote on the question because take from the table is not debatable. So all that's been said is fine, but we need to vote on the motion that's currently on the floor, and that's to table this.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to table these ordinance amendment. All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. No. I think we better do a roll call.
Clarence Campbell,
No.
Patrick Kinney,
Yes.
Charles Ortman,
Yes.
Elizabeth Franick,
Yes.
Richard Pufall,
No.
Ronald Sindor,
No.
Dylan Jennings,
Yes.
Michael Berlin,
No.
Richard Corpola,
Yes.
George Mika,
Yes.
Martin Vitek,
Yes.
Richard Huber,
No.
Doreen Hannanen,
Yes.
John Wiener,
Yes.
Kathy Schutte,
Yes.
Gary Murdock,
Yes.
Laura Negro,
Yes.
Matt McKenzie,
No.
Philomena Quebec,
Yes.
William Metzinger,
Yes.
Seven. 14 yeses and 6 noes.
The motion to table stands. We go to number 13, emergency fire warden approval.
Seeking a motion to approve the 2021 Emergency Fire Warden Organizational List. This is a yearly list of the Ashland County Emergency Fire Wardens to be approved by the Ashland County Board of Supervisors.
Motion to adopt?
Second that motion, Franick.
Who seconded it?
Franick.
Marty, okay. Marty Vitek seconded it. We have a motion and a second on the table to approve the emergency fire warden approval. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Number of court commissioners, number 14.
State law dictates that the county board set the number and salaries of court commissioners for the county. We currently have a rating of 1.6 caseload for our judge, meaning that we're over what is recommended for one judge to have. Having a second full-time judge would be a very significant cost to the county. In fact, Sawyer County got a new judge, and it triggered an expansion of their courthouse. They're actually spending $8 million on it, not just for one person, but it did trigger a review of that. So the county has never dictated how many court commissioners we should have, nor their salary. So in this case, we have one court commissioner who is paid a yearly salary to handle a number of different operations, and we are asking the county board to approve two court commissioners at $100 an hour in order to handle the less complicated cases which the judge can't get to. And this, I believe, would save us from, prolong the timeline until we have to get a second full-time judge. We have the budgetary items in there. These are budgeted. It should not increase the budget too much, but we do have to watch this. In the 2020 budget, we had $1,500 for court commissioners outside of the family court commissioners, and $12,000 was spent on that. Again, a judge is making these decisions. I don't make these decisions. And so, but we do need the state, regardless of where we go with it, the county has to approve the number of court commissioners and the salary. So with that, I'd seek a motion for a county board to have 3 court commissioners be allowed for the circuit court, with 2 being paid $100 an hour and 1 being paid $22,022 per year.
Do we have a motion? Bill? Bill Metzinger? Okay, do we have a second? Matt? Okay, Matt McKenzie seconded. The motion and a second on the table to adopt the number of court commissioners in Ashland. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no.
No. No.
Motion carries. Thank you. Child support ordinance number 15.
This is a ordinance, and you notice that the ordinance is numbered 3-4-1. We are in the process of codifying, organizing our ordinances, since right now they're just listed on the website, listed by year. They're not organized at all. This is a significant issue which we're working on. So I just picked some numbers. This will change when we codify we're going to pass a book of ordinances eventually that will have a title, chapter, and verse for your ordinances. In the meantime, we're just going with this. This basically is a ordinance that basically we're allowed to bill for some child support issues. With that, we seek a motion to recommend ordinance 3-4-1 for approval by the county board.
Okay,
This is Supervisor Negro. I'll make that motion.
Clarence? You want to second it?
I'll do either one.
Well, we won't fight over that. We have a motion by Laura, second by Clarence, to approve ordinance 3-4-1. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 16, resolution RO3 2021-1380. George, supporting increased funding for ADRC.
And so this is in your packet. I won't read through it. It basically is just encouraging the state to fully fund the Aging and Disability Resource Center. And we would forward this down to our representatives. With that, we would seek a motion to approve resolution R03 2021-1380.
I have a question.
We need to get a second before we enter debate.
Do we have a second on this motion? Bill Metzinger seconded it. Okay, Kathy, what's your question?
If we send this down to get approval and we don't get it, does the county have to do the increase, take care of the increase?
No, this is only advocating for it to be included in the budget.
We're asking the state to increase the funding for this, Kathy.
Okay, and if they don't?
This is Terry Barningham. If they don't, then we continue as we have been. The reason we are requesting it is because there has been inequitable funding of ADRCs depending on when you joined. So the first generation was fully funded with a lot of extra funding to allow them to do a lot of extra things. And as new ADRCs joined, the funding went down significantly. So there is not an equitable amount of funding throughout all the ADRCs. This would have brought it up to be equitable. If it doesn't pass, which I can tell you we drafted this before the first version of the budget came out. It isn't in the current budget. If it doesn't pass, we continue with our current funding.
Clarence?
Yeah, all this is doing is saying, state, give us more money. I mean, it doesn't change anything as far as We're just, and a lot of the counties are doing this, is saying, you know, you're asking us to do all these things, give us more money to do them.
I understand.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve the increased funding for ADRC. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Number 17, resolution 2021-1381, support of increased county child support funding.
This is basically along the same lines. It's in your packet. You can read it. We're basically just asking the state to fund a greater percentage of this. We get, I think, 66% funding for certain child support services. And of course, this is a mandate that we have to do, so we don't have a choice of not doing it. I would seek a motion to approve resolution R03-2021-1381.
Pranic, motion to approve.
Who made the motion?
Brannick.
Liz? Okay, who seconded it?
Yes.
Huber seconded it. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to support the increased county child support funding resolution. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Last item on the agenda. Resolution R03-2021-1382, supporting public health staff during a pandemic.
Again, this is basically just thanking the public health workers and the people in Health and Human Services that have coalesced around helping with the not only controlling COVID-19, but also now working with vaccinations, and basically expressing our thanks to them for their hard work. With that, we'd seek a motion to approve resolution R03-2021-1379.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion
This
by
is Doreen. I'll second that.
Doreen seconded it. All those in favor say aye.
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 I will
Opposed, say
also,
no.
I will also say for the board, under your board resources under the website, we are loading up all of the resolutions that we're doing. So instead of just let them sitting in the clerk's office in a filing cabinet, after we send them on, after they're signed, we basically do upload them in case you ever need to see them again.
All right, can we vote on this now? We have a motion and a second on the table to approve the public health staff support. Recognize them. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. County administrator updates.
The county is part of the Wisconsin County Utility Tax Association. We're going to be having a meeting with the Department of Revenue regarding a briefing on March 15th at 12 p.m. to discuss utility payments in lieu of property taxes, which the state collects and keeps most of. If you're interested in attending this, reach out to me and I can include you. They've encouraged county board members to attend this meeting. In short, the county, it used to be an 80-20 split where the county's got 80% of the money that utilities paid, and then the state kept 20, and now it's the opposite. The state keeps 20 and the state keeps 80 and they give 20 to us. And then what we're looking for is within the governor's budget and within the legislators to increase that percentage or make it adjustable for inflation or something, because it's been flat for decades. And of course, our costs for running a county are not flat or negative. March 29th, I will have the county boardroom open for the Wisconsin County Association's meeting on training on meeting management and efficient meetings. I would encourage you that, especially chair people of the committees that we have in this county, to attend. I will have the meeting up in the boardroom on the 29th, and I believe I got the I sent that flyer out. Let me make sure that I have the date correct. Yep, March 29th, 9 a.m. Out of order, Parliament and Procedures, Basics for Effective Meeting Management. So if you want to come and listen to that, feel free. Otherwise, it's in your email, those of you who have emails. Work continues on the healthcare study group. We'll be bringing back a recommendation to the executive committee soon. It's a very complicated issue. There's no single solution. It's not a black and white issue. It's an opinion on what we think will be best. But that's about as good as it's going to get. I've been partaking on the city homelessness work group, which has been meeting to discuss the issue and the concepts of homeless shelters here in the city of Ashland. We have been asked to open up the courthouse to homeless people, and the chairperson and I have deemed that that's an unrealistic proposition to open up the courthouse when it's 20 below outside for people to sleep in the courtrooms. So this group is made up of a bunch of nonprofits, the city. I'm partaking in it to see, is there some way that these housing fragile individuals can be protected, especially when it gets to be super cold at night. If you're interested in information on that, you can connect with Mayor Lewis is coordinating that. Census data won't be coming in until the 30th of September, 6 months after the normal timeline. This will affect the 60-60-60 time frame for adjusting to new districts. WECA is working and coordinating efforts to have all 72 counties redistrict in 2022-23 for an effective election of new districts, being the first election of 2024. And I'll keep you updated on this issue, as this is a fluid issue. State law has to change for this to happen. And so they're going to, the Republicans and Democrats are going to have to work together to modify state law, since no one will be able to meet this particular deadline. Just an update, we have not had a jury trial since March of last year. We have one coming up which cannot be delayed. We are working with the city. We would be doing jury selection in the Breading Center because this is a controversial jury case. And we would likely bring in 50 to 60 potential jurors to go through, and there's not room for social distancing within the courthouse to do that. So I just wanted to let you update that this will be our first one, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes. As he alluded to earlier, the Department of Revenue, I've been working with them a lot about our particular situation. And one of the things that we also can look at is there is an opportunity within state law to use municipal insurance for liability and property can be put on debt levy also, in order to free up general levy to pay for other things. So these are all things we're kind of exploring to figure out how to cash flow the operation. And that's one of our main issues, is cash flow. We're studying timber carbon credits, and so forestry is working on that. There was a presentation at Bayfield last month, and we basically are investigating that also to see where that goes. These are long-term contracts, 30, 40-year-long contracts, where you sign to basically have your county forest lands managed in such a way that you can basically sell carbon credits, and you can also sell the timber on there, provided you're just doing a managed, certified forest. So that will be something to look for in the future. Might take a year or two to figure that out. We're following the Brown County sales tax case is going to the Supreme Court. I've talked about this issue last year. Brown County was sued. State law is a little vague, but some of the intent of state law when counties enacted sales taxes that they would decrease the property taxes for counties, and us and 68 other counties have sales taxes. We pretty much just put them into the operations of what we do. And the circuit court ruled in favor of Brown County that if it were not for the sales tax, it would just increase debt levy, which they're allowed to do. The appeals court has passed on this issue due to the statewide ramifications, and they basically have sent it to the Supreme Court. It would be a significant change if the Supreme Court ruled against counties that you basically can't use sales tax unless you basically decrease your property taxes. So we have basically our general levy tax is around 6.7 million. If we had to decrease that $1.4 million, it would be a very significant change to what government looks like. I've been attending the Rural Action Caucus for NACO to help guide policy for rural counties, and we were working particularly on trying to get guidance concerning the pandemic relief bill, which is being passed, and as we speak probably. And just to let everybody know on this, there are Treasury basically has these 4 basic limits on what, if this does pass, what it could be used for. And it's basically responding to public health emergency with respect to COVID, respond to workers performing essential work during COVID, for provisions of government services to extend, I can't see this over here. For provisions for government services to extend to the reduction of revenue. So if we had decreased income tax or sales tax due to public health emergency, and then making necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband. So we're working on the Rural Action Caucus to try to say, can we broaden that a little bit? Because if you don't have roads, how do you respond to a pandemic? You know, so these are types of things that we'll be looking at. This pandemic revenue is not going to solve, it's one-time money, is not going to solve the financial situation of the county, but there may be some enhancements that we can put in there that would help, hopefully in the long term. When you have one-time money, you want to spend it on something that's going to be there for a while. I sent out a notice for people for the 2050 DOT comments. If you have comments concerning transportation issues, they're putting together a 30-year plan. I would encourage you to check your emails on that. And I'm thinking about, based on where the referendum goes, thinking about doing a budget survey. Basically these, Bayfield is doing one, and they basically they went through, they got maybe 300 or so responses. It's not scientific, it's only people who have internet and who read their emails and who watch the websites, but it basically talks about what do they feel about the county services. Are they satisfied with county services? Where would they like to see more county services applied to? And they have these general priorities that you can see here. And so I would take that through probably the executive committee to come up with some questions if we go through this before our budgetary process gets developed this summer. And I think it'd be good for at least another avenue for citizens to weigh in, and by then we'll have the answer on the referendum where we're going to go with that to generate some information. And that is my administrator's update.
Okay, we'll move right along to F, County Board Supervisors reports. Anybody have a report?
I do.
Go ahead.
So when we're talking about the EMS problem that the county is having, the town of Marengo was asking for grants and donations to supply this ambulance that we have purchased. And I applied for a grant through Enbridge Energy. It's a safe community grant. And they have okayed a grant for $10,000 to supply the new ambulance with supplies for the back of it. The check hasn't been presented to the town yet. It's coming in April. And that's the end of my report.
Anyone else have a,
On the 16th, we got a land sale that we're going to be putting a date on, Wisconsin surplus. So the land sale will be set on the 16th of March, and hopefully that all goes good for the first time.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment? Okay, we'll next thing on the agenda, I guess you guys that have vouchers with you, you can turn them in today or turn them into the office or whatever. Get them in. At the end of the supervisor reports, the next thing on the agenda, the motion to adjourn.
Next meeting, by the way, remember April 20th, 9 o'clock. And it's my intention, I'll work with Chairman Poofel on that, but I think we'll be far enough in the vaccination schedule to have that meeting in the county boardroom. So if you're uncomfortable with that, we obviously will still be doing the Zoom meeting, but I think working with Liz, we'll probably have enough people vaccinated that I would be comfortable with that. So that's my intention.
Thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Ron made a motion to adjourn. And John seconded it.